Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Real, Raw, and Honest as we continue our series on fear, if that's what we want to call it. We're taking a look at a few things about fear, and today we're going to be looking at the fear of getting hurt. If I was going to give you a general definition, say, of what fear is, it would be that feeling that we get when we are in danger, or when we perceive that we're in danger, when we feel threatened in some way. That's fear. And but the thing to remember is that sometimes it can be generational. The feelings are still the same, whether it's generational or whether it's perceived or whether it's real. Like you'll have that same feeling of fear. Now, this can include things like generalized anxiety. It can include fear of something more specific, like heights or spiders. But the thing is fear is the thing that makes your heart race. It makes your blood freeze, if you want to say that, or sweat or run. It puts you in the fear flight. It puts you in the flight response most of the time, or fight, right? And so it causes a reaction inside of you. And so that's basically what fear is, if I was going to give it a general definition. So, in a nutshell, fear has as its base a fear of getting hurt or of being hurt or something worse, right? Like it's that fear that something's going to happen that's beyond your control, something that's going to cause you pain either physically or emotionally or psychologically, right? And so that's fear. And so but today specifically we're talking about the fear of getting hurt. And this is a real issue for a lot of people, and it certainly was a big issue for me when I was growing up, and even after I left the house. Like the fear of getting hurt was really a big deal in my life. So let's ask the question, where does it come from? Where does this fear of getting hurt come from? Well, there's a few places. When a child lives in an unsafe environment where there's lots of fighting and promises are broken and people get hurt emotionally or physically, those kinds of things, they begin to realize that being emotionally close and vulnerable to somebody equals getting hurt. That's just the way it is. If I'm going to be emotionally vulnerable, if I'm going to allow myself to pour out my feelings to mom or to dad when I come home because something awful happened, I got bullied at school, I got pushed into the bushes, my lunch was stolen, the kids made fun of me, the teacher was mad at me. If I come home and I talk to my parents about that and it becomes an unsafe environment, well, then you've got, the beginnings of that fear of getting hurt, because you got hurt physically and you got hurt emotionally, maybe at school, and then you come home and the very thing that you're hoping to be able to relieve, you can't, because they just heap more onto it. But even worse than that is the fact that you can grow up in a home where it's your parents or an older sibling that causes that damage to you, that fear of getting hurt. Somebody that you trust, somebody that you feel like you can be vulnerable with, someone that you feel like you can talk to, or somebody that you just feel safe being around. And when that trust is broken through abuses of any kind, and there are different kinds, and so physical, um, intimately, you know, ways like that breaks the trust. And so then being vulnerable and being means being safe, unsafe. That's what it comes down to, is that state of being, okay, well, if I'm going to be in this relationship, then, and you can't get away from it, your parents are your parents, your siblings are your siblings, there's not much you can do about it until you move out of the house, and even then your family's still your family. But when that happens, it sets you up for fear of getting hurt in relationships, and that can cause a lot of problems in adult life, right? So what that does then is it sets us up to not want to be vulnerable and not want to be open and not want to be honest with other people that we're getting into relationship or have friendships with, right? So because what has happened is that the people that we believed that were safe are not safe at all. They became the most unsafe people, is the very place that we should be able to feel secure. We were not able to feel secure with the very people we were able to should be able to feel secure with. We did not feel secure. So there's this thing that happens inside of us then. So to put it in a more of a nutshell, I'll say this. A lot of times fear not necessarily a fear of spiders or a fear of heights or something like that, although it definitely can. Most of the time, fear comes from trauma. And it comes from, being in a situation that was not safe, a place when you were a child, when you felt afraid, when you felt unprotected, and that there was nothing you could do to change the situation around you. Fear of getting hurt comes from that. So, the other thing I wanted to say, and I think I already mentioned this, is that fear can be generational. So let's not forget, fear can be generational. It's something that can happen in our families from, both our mother's side or our father's side. So it's important to take a look at that and say how many people in your family struggle with fear, anxiety, that kind of thing. And to look at that and go, if it's generational, then, we need to begin to pray to break that off as well. And that's not that difficult. It does mean, sitting down and praying and asking the Lord to, recognizing the fact that fear is a problem in your family, that anxiety is an issue in your family, and that you want to get rid of it. And so taking it as the generational curse breaker, if you want to call it, and beginning to pray around it and to break it off. So there is that aspect of it. So it can be generational and not coming necessarily from a place of trauma, because trauma changes the DNA in a person. So say you have your great grandfather had trauma that caused a lot of fear in his life, his DNA was altered. And if that happened, or in your grandmother, then what happens is they have children, their DNA is altered, and they pass that altered DNA down to the next generation, and they carry that altered DNA to the next generation and the next generation, until someone comes along and they say, no, I want to be the authentic me that God created me to be, and I don't want all these things hanging on me, so I'm just going to deal with this now, and I'm going to ask the Lord to return my specific DNA and that of my family lineage, my generations, my children, my grandchildren, and even my brothers and sisters. I want the Lord to return that back to the DNA that He had originally planned for us. It's possible, and it can happen. So the fear of getting hurt can underlie everything that we do in life. It can be, it can underlie every relationship that we enter into. It can enter into job opportunities, and even alter our successes and our failures, right? So fear of getting hurt can prevent us from moving forward and to make more money, to enter into the fullness of God's call upon our life, the anointing, the talent, whatever it is that He's got and that He wants to do in your life. Fear of getting hurt will cause you to pull back from that and not step into it fully. So we want to make sure that we're working in such a way that we can allow the Lord to do everything that He wants to do in us, because we want to give Him the glory and the honor for everything. So let's just say this: if you grew up in an abusive environment, and if you lived in that for a long period of time, like say from the time you were an infant until you moved out of the house, it can be really hard to disengage from that. How do you disengage from a fear of not knowing what's going to happen, because every day was a different day? Was dad going to be angry? Was mom going to be angry? Was it going to be explosive anger? Was it going to be passive aggressive anger? Was somebody going to be coming into your bedroom in the middle of the night? Was there going to be some other kind of an altercation, right? Was there going to be name calling and pushing and shoving and hitting? Like, not knowing those things puts you in a state of that fear, that constant fear of being hurt. And so when you grow up in that kind of environment, when you grow up and you move out for a while, you might feel that kind of, I'm out of that now. But the reality is that you are still afraid that that's going to happen. You're still afraid that it's possible. Even though you'll have that little bit of a reprieve in the beginning, you're going to fall back into that in some way, shape, or form if you don't deal with it spiritually, if you don't take it to the Lord. So we want to deal with the fear. Yes, I know, like I've said before, 365 times the Bible says, don't be afraid. True story. But like I've said before, I don't think that God is saying, it's like, don't be afraid. So, and if you're afraid that that's the worst thing that could happen, I think He's saying that because He knew we were going to be afraid. And so He's just saying, for every single day of the year, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid today. Today, we'll worry about tomorrow. There's enough trouble for tomorrow. Tomorrow has all of its own troubles. We'll deal with that tomorrow. But today, don't be afraid of today. Don't be afraid of the things that are on your plate for today. Deal with today. Let's look at the things that are before us today. Let's move forward today in confidence that if God has put it before you, He's going to help you through it, right? So face it. Even if you're a little timid, even if you're a little afraid, even if you're a lot afraid, with God, all things are possible, right? And so this is not to little or to belittle or to minimize fear in any way, shape, or form, but it's just taking hold of the hand of God and knowing that if He said 365 times, don't be afraid, I'm going to take one for every single day of my life, and I'm going to walk with Him and say, today, I'm going to work with you and walk with you, so I don't need to be afraid today with the things that are coming my way. Does that make sense? And so when we're talking about getting hurt, that can be in the relationships that are coming our way and the people that are standing before us, the people that God is putting in our path for us to be connected to. So I'm not going to be afraid that this person is going to hurt me because I'm going to take the hand of God as I move forward. Now, will it happen? It might happen, but we're going to look at some tools at the end so that we can get some healing so that even when it does happen, or if it does happen, that we can confidently walk through that and confidently take His hand and let His healing restore us so that we're not walking in a place where we're rejecting the people around us. So I hope that makes sense so far. Okay, so as an adult, if we grew up in that kind of an environment, what that can do is it can lead us to shove down and to bury and ignore and medicate the fear that we feel because we don't want anybody else to know that it's there. So we'll overeat, we'll be the life of the party, we'll be controlling, we'll be manipulating, we're going to just shove it down. Nobody can see it. I have to be the one that appears to be in control, and we don't look at it. So, and even medicating it, like with drugs, alcohol, that kind of thing, so that people don't know that we're afraid. And so really what we have to do is we have to look at that and go, no, what is the bottom reason why I'm doing these things? And it might be fear. And if it is, again, taking a look at it one step at a time and just walking with the Lord through it. Now, I'm not trying to make this sound too simple, but I really only have a half an hour for each one of these. I don't want it to go any further than that. I don't want it to be long. So I kind of shorten this up. Addictions are a very serious thing, and they're things that a lot of people struggle with. And so as people struggle with addictions, usually addictions come out of that traumatic kind of home where there's a lot of chaos and there's a lot of, children are left to try to figure life out on their own. There's not a lot of guidance, not a lot of tools, not a lot of help, not a lot of emotions are being able to be expressed. And so that can sometimes be the case. And so as I deal with each one of these, I'm just really kind of breaking it down into the little pieces that as I've worked through the years with people, I've noticed that these are some of the things that have helped other people to get free. And we don't want to medicate, we don't want to shove down or ignore any of those things because fear will affect you and it will affect your health to some degree. So let's just remember that the reason that we have this fear and the reason that we're shoving it down and the reason that we feel like we can't express it is because our internal trust meter has been damaged from our childhood, right? Because of the trauma, because of the abuse, and it's because of those reasons, because of the things that happened in our home life. Like I said, is it going to be an explosive anger? Is it going to be name calling? Is it going to be passive aggression, with the slamming of things or snide and sharp comments? Is it going to be hitting? Is it going to be someone coming into your room in the middle of the night? What is it that caused the trauma, right, that causes us to trust no one today? The fear of being hurt means I don't trust people because people cannot be trusted because the people I thought I could trust, I couldn't trust, and they damaged me. So, the thing is this feeling is made more and more solid every single time that we enter into a relationship or a friendship and we're rejected and we're laughed at or we're shamed or when we fail. But here's the thing, those things happen to everybody. You're not going to go through life and never be rejected by somebody. You're not going to go through life and never fail at anything. There's going to be times you're going to do things where you're going to feel some shame. And so when those things happen, it just solidifies everything we believed from our childhood forward and just causes us to, be more to bury it, to overlook it, to make humor of it, to control the narrative, whatever it is. All of those things are there. We don't want to do that, and we don't want to walk there. So the pain, the hurt, and the rejection can cause us to make a vow. And that vow can be, I'm never going to be hurt again. And I actually remember doing that when I was in grade 7. I remember, and some of you have heard this story before from me, so please, I apologize, forgive me for having mentioned it again. But when I was in grade 7, I remember sitting in my desk in school, and I'd had a very brutal encounter with some bullies in my school during lunch hour. And I remember sitting there, and I sat at the front of the class, and I just remember building this invisible brick wall around me so that I could see out, but nobody could hurt me. And then that summer when I went home, I dissociated so much that I actually created a different reality, and I forgot everything that had ever happened to me. All the abuse, all the bullying, all the things. And I was just this happy-go-lucky, fun-loving kid that had forgotten until someone came up to me and they said, wow, like what happened to you? Like you were never like this before. Like it's almost like, you forgot what people said. And I go, well, what did people say? And when they said it in grade 8, it just all came crashing down around me again. And I'm like, oh, wow, thanks for that. I was having a good time in my little land of denial there, but we can't live there. We have to deal with the emotions and the hurt and the pain that has been caused to us. So if it has been a bully, we're going to deal with that. I want you to think about these things as we enter in the end of this teaching. So it can cause us to make an internal vow that we are never going to be hurt again, and that we will avoid getting hurt at all costs. Now, I will say this, if you have ever made either one of those vows, if you have ever looked at it and said, okay, like I did, you have to break those vows off before the Lord. You have to cancel the assignment that the enemy is going to put on your life because of the words that you've spoken, because he's going to take that seriously. The enemy is going to look at that and he's going to say, okay, so you're not going to get hurt again. So he's now going to put you in situations and he's going to make that a vow. We need to break that off before the Lord so that it doesn't hold us captive, if you know what I mean when I say that. So I don't know if I said that in the best way possible, but any vow that we make that is not God honoring, and vowing never to be hurt again, then puts us in a situation where that's not going to be God honoring in the long run. So we need to look at that and we need to say to the Lord, no, I'm going to break that off. So however, I want to say this too, that the fear of getting hurt causes us to be highly suspicious of the people around us, especially those that we're getting close to or that we're in a relationship with. So you might have found this, or you might know somebody who does this, or maybe you've done it yourself, right? Where you've been in a relationship and your previous relationship, the person cheated on you, they had an affair, and so now you're just so afraid it's going to happen again that you're always questioning, you're always bombarding, you're always checking their phone, and so there's this fear of getting hurt again is making you difficult to be with. And friendships can be the same. Where were you? Who are you with? What did you do? Why wasn't I invited? Those kinds of things are really pervasive when we have been hurt in the past. And so we can't allow those things to continue to own us, because it will just really do damage to our life as we grow older, and we'll end up alone, and we don't want to do that either. So it's just looking at it and going, okay, how do I break the cycle? Because these things are going to lead us to thinking, how long will it be in this relationship until I get hurt? How long is it going to be? Could be a week, could be a month, could be a year, could be 3 years, but inevitably it's going to happen, that this person is going to let you down. And so you can carry that thought process with you for years before it actually transpires. But I've dealt with people who said, well, she just really believed I was going to have an affair, so I figured, what the heck, now she's right. Not a good choice, I'm just saying, but I have heard that. And to say, well, they didn't have any faith in me anyway, so what was the point? I might as well have just gone ahead and done the very thing that they believed I was going to do anyway. And so it's looking at those things, looking at that and going, okay, how long is it going to be before I get hurt? Is a thinking that can come out of that fear of getting hurt. Another thing that can come out of that is the I'll reject you before you reject me. We could do that in friendships, we can do that in relationships, we can do that at work. We can kind of self-sabotage because it's like, well, I'm going to reject you because today maybe you woke up and maybe the other person woke up rather and they had a flat tire and they didn't have time for breakfast and they were late for work, and then, they were almost out of gas or they ran out of gas, and so, all of these things. So they come in and they talk to you and they're out of sorts, and you take that all wrong kinds of ways because you're afraid of getting hurt. So now you're feeling that the reason they're acting like that is because they're upset with you and they're going to reject you. And so now all of a sudden, before they can reject you, you've got to reject them. So you can end the relationship, you can end the friendship, you can do all of those kinds of things because you're reading the situations around you incorrectly. You're seeing things that don't actually exist. And so being aware of that as well. So being vulnerable then in your mind equals fear. So you will end relationships when you feel vulnerable. So you have a boyfriend or you have a girlfriend, you have you've been married for a while. And I actually know of a couple, I think they were married 7 or 8 times. It's the craziest thing. And they would do this cycle, right? And it was him who needed to deal with some things. They probably both needed to deal with some things, but this was his um, response. And so they were in love and they got married and they'd be together and it would be good for 3 or 4 years, and then all of a sudden he'd start to pull away because just when things started to fall into that, that relaxed marital state, when you're not always trying to make the other person happy or try to meet an unspoken need, when you're just coming in and you're just kind of doing life together. As soon as he started to feel that, he would start to feel the rejection, and because he felt the rejection, then he would leave. And so he would end the marriage. And because they actually truly did love each other, they would separate for a year or two, and then they would start dating and they'd fall in love all over again, and they'd do the cycle over and over and over and over again. And it was just like, wow, you guys really need to stop doing this, but let's take a look at what it is that's causing this to happen. So just something to consider there. Ending relationships. So when you start to feel vulnerable, when things aren't necessarily as exciting as they were before, maybe when you've shared something about your past, about the abuses of your past, or abuses of some kind, that you start to feel vulnerable because you opened up a part of your soul, what you're afraid of, and now you have to end the relationship because of that, right? So you end the relationship when you feel vulnerable, and this causes the sabotaging of friendships and relationships and successes at work and promotions, because the fear of getting hurt, what it is like, I'm afraid that I'm not going to be able to manage what is coming my way. So I'm just going to end it before I ever get there because that's safe. That feels good to me. That feels comfortable to me. That's what I'm used to is, and the only way that I can stay safe is if I don't put myself in the ring. So we're just going to keep sabotaging relationships, keep sabotaging success. It's not the way to go. But the reality is this comes from the truth of what you've always known, the truth that was taught to you as a child in the environment that you grew up in. And that's this: intimacy. If you're intimate with somebody emotionally, you're going to get hurt. That's what you learned as a child. So intimacy means I'm going to get hurt. So intimacy means being vulnerable. And vulnerability equals pain. And so eventually you get to the point that you go, well, relationships aren't worth it because I don't want the pain. I don't want to be vulnerable. I don't want to get hurt. And so you just don't get into those relationships. So it's not worth the effort, and we don't want to go there. So let's take a look these last few minutes at some of the tools that you need for the Lord, that you can take before the Lord so he can begin to bring healing into your life in these areas of fear of getting hurt. And of course, the first one is always to look at the situations around you and determine who hurt you. And it might be mom, it might be dad, it might be an older sibling, it might be an uncle or an aunt or a grandpa. It might be a teacher, it could be the bullies at school, but who hurt you and why? And be honest. No parents are perfect. I'm certainly not perfect. My kids will tell you that. They'll probably tell you some things too that... Anyway, we won't go there. So, being honest and go, who hurt me and how did they hurt me? And be honest with that. Be vulnerable before the Lord. He knows everything anyway, so just go before him and talk to him about that. And then admit and recognize that their actions hurt you. That the things that they did and the things that they said, they hurt you, they damaged you. They were emotionally wounding. Admit it before the Lord. Say, Lord, I recognize that it's my dad that hurt me, and I'm taking responsibility now for the emotions that I have, but I admit that his actions when he was angry and he was yelling and he was threatening, that was very damaging to me and it hurt me a lot. So you can be honest in that way. And then the third thing is to be able to forgive him and be specific, right? Be specific. No blanket apology. No going, okay, I forgive my dad. No, I forgive my dad for. I forgive my bullies for chasing me out of the school, for stealing my lunchbox, for hitting me in the head with my lunchbox, for tossing me into the trees, for, attempting to run over me with the car. I forgive my mom for not giving me supper, for putting me in the closet, for whatever, right? I forgive my abuser for coming into my room in the middle of the night. I'm forgiving them because that damaged me, it wounded me, and it hurt me. You've got, be honest when you come before the Lord. So forgive, be specific. So determine who hurt you, and this can take a bit of time. Determine who hurt you, admit that the person hurt you, recognize what it did to you, and then forgive and be specific in that. Number 4, ask the Lord to begin to come in and to heal your wounded heart and spirit. Ask him to begin to come in every area where your heart was wounded, every area where distrust came in, every area where you felt fearful. Ask him to begin to come in and just bring healing and to wash you on the inside with his love. You're going to want to do that too. Just ask the Lord just to come in and to heal and to wash you and to take away the fear and to bring a mending into your heart, into your spirit. And then number 5 is you're going to surrender all the fear to the Lord. And if you can see it, however you see it, I just want you to take it. I want you to put it at the foot of the cross, and I want you to go, here is my fear. Here is my bullies. Here are my parents. Here is the pain. Here is my mom. Here is my abuser. I'm going to put them at the foot of the cross. I'm going to give them to you, Jesus, and I'm going to leave them with you, and I'm going to walk away. That's what you need to do. Just surrender them and to walk away from all of those things after you've done the forgiveness. So that's number 5. And number 6 is you're going to determine with God's help and with God's healing that you're not going to run away and that you're not going to shut down from relationships that he puts before you. That when he brings somebody into your life, you can be kind, you can be gentle, you can be cautious, and you should be cautious, but don't be fearful. So go for lunch, go to the movie, and when you've been vulnerable, then you're going to start to apply things that you haven't applied in the past. So if you open up about yourself because they've opened up about themselves, you're not going to run away from the situation. You're going to go, okay, here I am. I'm going to sit now. You're going to go home. You're probably going to freak out a little bit. That's okay. But you're going to ask the Lord to bring his healing into that situation so that you can continue the relationship even though you feel vulnerable. Be honest before the Lord. So those are the things I would suggest as you work through your fear of getting hurt with other people. And I just want to thank you for being a part of this. If you find these things, these teachings valuable, and I hope that you do, I ask you to subscribe and to like, to comment, and to share with somebody else. That helps me a lot. Even if you like it, that helps me quite a bit. And so just give me a little thumbs up. And let's move forward in this, and so we can get this teaching out to other people who will benefit from it. So when you know somebody, or even if and again, fear of getting hurt would say, if I share this with somebody, they might get angry with me because they feel like I'm pointing the finger at them and they don't want to look at it, so I don't want to do it. Well, take the chance, and maybe this is the very thing that they're looking for. So I thank you so much for being with me and for encouraging me as we go forward in these teachings. Bless you so much, and we will see you next week.